Okay, now here in the timeline area, we also have these alcoves. Now, this room here is modeled after the long room in the Trinity Library in Dublin, Ireland. This is really where the past, the present, and the future all meet here at the Clinton Library. This here is an alcove here focusing on making peace. As I mentioned in the timeline section, President Clinton did help to bring about the Good Friday Agreement. This here is a map here showing the different areas of the world where there's different conflicts going on during the Clinton years. Going down through here. In 1999, that's when everything happened in Kosovo, when we brought down, in President Clinton's words in the intro video, the orientation video, we brought down one of the most brutal dictators of the 20th century without losing a single American life. This was one of the UN helmets that one of the peacekeepers was wearing during that operation. But the Oslo Accords were the big thing. You know, President Clinton did his best to try and bring about peace throughout the world, whether it's in Europe, the Middle East, you know, in the Balkans, so many different situations around the world he wanted to bring peace to. Now, in relation to that, to be a successful leader, you have to have a good relationship with other leaders, and President Clinton understood that. And what we see here is an exhibit on his relationship with world leaders all over the world. Some leaders that stand out who he was friends with was President Nelson Mandela of South Africa, and they were really good friends for many years. The Prime Minister of Israel back in the mid-90s, I'm drawing a blank here on his name, Yitzhak Rabin, yes. He was someone who President Clinton worked with to try and bring about peace in the Middle East between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Tony Blair was also a good friend of President Clinton's. Tony Blair was the Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1997 until 2007. And they did have a visit together at the White House. This here is an alcove here dealing with the work of the First Lady here. And every presidential library has an area dedicated to their First Lady here. And this shows off a lot of the stuff that Secretary Clinton did while she was First Lady of the United States. And she was a major player in supporting women's rights, and she's made her mark on the world. After leaving office, Secretary Clinton was a member of the U.S. Senate representing New York, and that was during 9/11. And she went on to be Secretary of State under President Obama and then run for president a couple of times. Now, we move on here to fighting climate change and protecting the environment. That's what this area here is about. So we see all the information about the different places that President Clinton was able to help bring about into the National Park Service. So that's what all the information is in this alcove here. And it's also during President Clinton's time in office when Little Rock Central High School became part of the National Park Service as well. But we come down here to the Making Communities Safer alcove here. And this is the way President Clinton wanted to fight crime. So President Clinton, he wanted to focus on his strategies such as like the assault weapons ban, putting more cops on the beat. You can see one of the rifles there, which were outlawed by the assault weapons ban in '94. And the assault weapons ban ended in 2004, had that sunset clause, and Congress did not continue it. You can see Some of these documents here. There's also police badges showing the different police departments that benefited from President Clinton's efforts to make communities safer. So over here we have on this side, to really wrap things up here on this side of the room, President Clinton's role in helping out the economy. You can see with this line here, there was a major economic boom in the 90s. President Clinton did balance the budget. That was one major success of his time in office, was that the budget was balanced. And he wanted to do everything he could to advocate for saving Social Security with the surplus that came about from the economic success that we had during the 90s. Here's some more papers here and all, more information behind some of these areas of the timeline here. Now, when you go to President Johnson's library, his timeline, it actually goes throughout the whole 20th century and even into the 21st century, not just on their lives, but getting into the next area here, the alcoves here, and I'm on the other side of the room here. And a lot of these timeline, these areas, these different alcoves, by this area of the timeline here, a lot of these deal with their efforts, like with putting people first, being there for people, wanting to also help out with education and make sure kids were being educated. Take it down to the next one here. Y'all see some of this here. A lot of books here. AmeriCorps was started during President Clinton's time in office, as talked about here. President Clinton, he did research. He had research done for the human genome.
The president knew that one of the biggest challenges that we would be facing is the fact that we would become a nation of many races.
So here's
my fellow Americans,
a lot of t-shirts and all. So yeah, President Clinton, he wanted to be there for all people. You know, he wanted to be there whether it's for people of different religious faiths, political groups, LGBT, for those with different disabilities, whether they're blind or whatever the case may be. And that's what that alcove is focusing on.
Have parents and technologists go out and wire all the schools.
So this here is dealing with technology here. Here's one of the old computers from back then. Very old school there. This here is really dealing with education here in this area. Come around over here.
Lost his job. Extraordinary.
Basically, a Salco back there dealt a lot with the fight for power. So that dealt like with President Clinton's impeachments. And so there's a lot of information there dealing with a lot of the information in regards to the impeachments against President Clinton, which he was impeached but not convicted. He survived that. This here, one of the alcoves here. Let y'all see this quote here. Like I said, if you need to pause the video, y'all go on ahead and do that. If you need to read or. And this here is dealing with Some of the TVs are down. Sometimes some of the stuff here, you know, with a lot of this equipment being over 20 years old, they have to do what they can to try and keep it as patched up as they can. It will take a lot of money to update everything here. They are wanting to do an expansion to the Clinton Library, which will include more information about Secretary Clinton. And yeah, this one here, I believe, is the one that's dealing with new threats. Yeah, it's what this exhibit here is, this alcove here. And actually, y'all may have seen this as I was going through these alcoves here. They do have one of the old wanted posters for Osama bin Laden. Yes, we were after him even before 9/11. Now over here is our exhibit that we have on the Little Rock Nine. We have one of the Congressional Gold Medals that President Clinton gave the Little Rock Nine in 1999. It was actually like a couple of days after Daisy Bates, who helped the Little Rock Nine as the head of the NAACP in 1957 for Arkansas, had passed away. This here is all of the members of the Little Rock Nine, a little video. There are 7 members of the Little Rock Nine who are still with us as I record this. Thelma Mothershed and Jefferson Thomas have passed away. Elizabeth Eggford is the one who still lives here in Little Rock, who's still alive. Minnie Jean Brown Trickey, and then Gloria, forget her last name, it's here in this exhibit here. She lives in Sweden. So the other members of the Little Rock Nine, Carlotta Wallace lives in Colorado, and Ernest Green lives around the DC area. But they have all went on to be very successful. In September, it'll be 69 years since the integration of Little Rock Central High School. And so it's really great having that exhibit here, since that event really did play a role in President Clinton's life. This here is like looking out on the Arkansas River, about to head up to the 3rd floor. There's some other exhibits there for life in the White House and early years in the Oval Office and the Making Amends exhibit.